Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins,
I'm Paul Hankins.
and you're on the air with Power Squared. This week we're going to do sort of a look back at what happened in 2022 with Power Squared and with this podcast.
Yes, our annual rewind.
That's right. So welcome aboard. Hope you're having a happy holidays. We're obviously celebrating Christmas behind us. But we just want, this is kind of the time of the year where you kind of look back. I always hate it when like magazines do look backs and like, they wrote it in June, or whatever. So this is sort of as close to the end of the year. We have one more week left. And so we thought it'd be time to take a look back. So let's talk about Power Squared itself, the reason we do the show. I guess the big event for us start of the year was a Kickstarter that we did with Artith Merrick.
Yes.
And the result of that was a sort of remastered version of the graphic novel that we did a Kickstarter for, like, I think 2 years before, a year before. And so we went through and we had new cover art done by Rachel Wells and Julia Cannon. And we went through and sort of remastered the script.
Yeah.
So we sort of updated the dialogue and try to be a little more concise and make sure that we're sort of pointing the way to the story a little bit better in the remastered version. So that was the whole started off. That was March and mostly April of this year. And you can also now buy a sort of a paperback version of that. If you are interested in buying, of course, you can look at our website and the campus store.
Yes.
Hey, I got that right. All right. So that wasn't all we did. We actually released 3 issues. Number 13, The Imposter Part 1. 14, The Imposter Part 2. How did we come up with that name? And issue 15, which was just released earlier this month, and it's called How They Met, and it sort of expands on the story of how Marty and Eli met Mocha.
Yes.
Which was sort of briefly touched upon in issue number 2. There's a whole issue now about it in issue 15. And also with issue 13, we introduced the SRCC Press, which is now on our books.
Yes.
The San Romero Community College Press. So it's kind of a little bit of a joke because it's not a university press, it's a community college press. But we introduced that to sort of brand it a little bit better. We're like, everybody seems to be published by somebody.
Yeah.
Even if it's their own company. So we decided we do it ourselves. And since the story takes place at a community college, San Romero Community College, we decided to name the press after that. So voila. And one other thing we did during the year was I moderated a panel at LA Comic-Con, in which Power Squared was part of, called Under the Radar. We were joined by Don Wynn and Tina Cecil Ward. Don was there hyping Pablo the Gorilla, and Tina was there hyping delegates. And I think that went off fairly well. 5 or 6 people showed up, and which was not a bad show up for that convention, really.
Yeah, for a small panel, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, especially for the first time doing a panel.
Yeah, that was the first time we've ever done a panel, and the first time we've been at a convention, really, since the little one we did in the Valley a couple of years ago. So we're trying to get back into that a little bit more. So we're here, though, to talk about a little bit about On the Air with Power Squared. And this is our 56th video this year.
Yeah.
We do one weekly. I want to talk a little bit about what were some of the bigger, as far as viewing goes.
Yeah.
And for us, double digits is huge. So we've had some where there was just us doing the show. So at number 10, we'll start with a conversation with Steve B. This happened at the end of March. And Steve is one of the co-creators of Artith Merrick.
Yes.
As an artist in his own right, does his own comic books, and he did a daily cartoon for some financial paper in London for years, and knows a lot about pensions in London or England. Sorry, but I mean, so he's kind of a multifaceted guy. He was on the show, and so we're happy to have him on the show. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Then we had a couple of we did a Kickstarter walkthrough that was fairly well watched, and that was 11 people have viewed the video on YouTube. That's not counting how many people might have downloaded it off of Podbean or one of the other platforms or have watched it here. This is just strictly if you go to YouTube, how many people have watched. So we did a sort of a walkthrough of the Kickstarter. We also had a conversation with Brandon Starocki, who we've actually had on the show twice this year.
Yes.
Both times he's selling his book.
Avalon.
Very good. Thank you. We also did a special on the Air with Power Squared about disappearing content, mostly on HBO Max.
Yeah, it was in the wake of the HBO Max purge, and I think we were talking about
animated shows.
Yeah, I think we ended up touching on like physical versus digital, and how that changing landscape, which is still kind of changing, would affect where we might try to pitch a show.
Right. Yes. So that was actually fairly well watched. We had another conversation with Lucas Scheffel. He is somebody who this year was on the show twice and was our first 5-time guest.
Yes.
But this was the conversation we had back in June with him. And Lucas does his own book. He actually has started a second book with Gary the Gorilla, and it's Angry Fred, who is kind of based on his father. And it was Angry Fred, Viva Las Vegas kind of a thing. And so he was on promoting that, and he was...
What was it called? Viva Las Angry?
Viva Las Angry, thank you. And but it's based on... He's a big Elvis fan.
Yeah.
If you ever watched one of the shows with him, we talk a lot about Elvis. But he's a fun guy. He's one of the cool parts about doing the show, I think, is we met him. So, and I'm glad other people like him as well. Twice this year, we asked... Rachel Wells and Julia Cannon, can't say enough about them because they're the artists behind the book and make it look as good as our words look as good as they can, I guess. They twice took over the show for us, once when we were in Comic-Con and once it was my wife's birthday and we weren't going to be able to do the show on a Friday. And they took it over twice, and one of those shows, which was sort of Halloween themed, was one of the top shows.
Yes.
So, and we want to thank them very much for doing that. And we may be calling on people again to take over. That was their second time. The first, it was in July during Comic-Con. We were able to reach out because of the promoting the Kickstarter, because it was included issues 3, 4, and 5. We reached out to the colorist Paige Redbird, who was the colorist on those issues, and had a conversation with her. We had never talked to her until that show. So that was kind of nice. That was fun. She sort of now does sort of leather goods. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about what she's doing now and stuff. And it was fun to catch up with her, actually meet her. The first, I would say the first 4 people to work on the book, we never actually talked to. Yeah. We just did everything through email, and we didn't have a mechanism to talk to them. And so we, since then, have actually had people on the show and talked to people. So it was kind of fun. But it was nice to catch up with her and learn a little bit about what's going on with her. Then we get into our biggest shows. Was What's in My Bag. During Free Comic Book Day, we
grabbed some stuff.
Yeah, it was you, me, Trevor, and
Rachel this
all,
time.
all went to Free Comic Book Day, grabbed some books, and talked about what the books we grabbed. And that show was like, 2 people watched it. But then when we talked about we read the books and talked about them, that was 16 people watched.
Yeah.
So that was a big show for us. So that was kind of fun. And that's sort of an off. It's not a on the air with Power Square. That was a special arrangement. And again, Rachel, thank you for your time. And then one of the top shows was the primer for Under the Radar.
Yeah.
We had Don and Tina on the show to talk about the kind of the questions we were going to ask, make sure they met each other virtually for the first time, and just sort of talked about what the panel is going to be about, and that got a pretty good reception.
Yes.
The panel was recorded.
Yes.
I was going to say filmed. It was recorded, and not taped. It was just recorded, and by my wife in the audience, and we've actually posted that on our YouTube channel. So if you actually want to watch that, you can.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, if you watch the primer, you might want to watch the
actual panel.
Yeah. So I didn't very too far off of that, but it was I think a very interesting. That was kind of the most interesting experience I think kind of this year, was actually doing that.
Yeah.
Because that was always been kind of a goal, I think, to do a panel.
Yeah.
And then the idea that I kind of invented the panel, that we got to do it, but hey, and that was fun.
And is there open to the possibility of doing it again?
Yeah, I'm going to try to pitch it to other conventions, and I don't know if it would be the same panel every time, but
we might have different panelists.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be on it, but
we're not making any promises right now.
I can't. Yeah, I haven't done it. There is I know in April that Comic-Con starts to accept panel requests.
SDCC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to probably pitch it there, and also that's I'm keeping Carla Hoke in the loop. See if she can do her panel, which is about Fight Right, which I think would be a really good panel.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the guests we've had on the show. We're not counting team members as guests,
right?
Because hey, you got to be here. No, they've actually been on the show a lot over the years. So this is just basically people outside of Power Square that have been on the show, and we've had sort of 9 guests. Mostly, a lot of times they're pitching their Kickstarters.
Yeah.
But we just want to go over the top people we've had on the show. So I mentioned Tina was on the show, the primer.
Yes.
She's been on the show before with delegates, actually a couple times with delegates. Start keeping track of people getting close to the 5,
yes.
The magic 5. John Dexter, who does Alpha Dogs.
Yes.
He was on pitching his Kickstarter for Alpha Dog 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we had Kirk Zauer, who actually talked to us about his Kickstarter, but he was actually at a convention on the floor.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun talking to him. We had Doug Neff on the show. Now, Doug is probably not a name you go, oh, Doug Neff. But, wow. But Doug was somebody kind of very influential for me, and I think for maybe us in general. He had a book about, and I never remember the name of any book, but it was going from sort of being a fan to actually being a creator was kind of the point of the book. And he hosts every year the Comic Creator Connection at Comic-Con. And we had done that 3 times with him as the host, which is, I think I always explained it sort of like speed dating.
Yes. As
writers, you're trying to find an artist to connect with.
Yeah.
And we never ever ended up with a date after those. But we came close once, but we found our artists in other ways. So he was on the show to talk about it. And the way he's been helpful for me as a writer, and I forgot what the blog fills what was missing, but I do a blog every week about my writing, a week in writing, and I've been doing that for 8 years. Basically, I think almost as long as the book's been out. But it was sort of as a way of keeping me honest about what I'm doing. So, and you actually edit that for me every week. So you're the first one to read it. But I've been doing that for over 8 years now. And so he was on the show talking about, he is sort of a, what do you call it, when somebody encourages other people, or, I'm talking about inspirational talk speaker kind of thing. So motivational. There you go. That's the word. He was on the show. So we're happy to have him. We wanted to have him back, but he kind of put us off for a little while. We'll have him back on probably next year to talk about motivation. We mentioned Steve B. being on the show. I thought that was a really interesting conversation with him.
Yeah.
Again, he'd done a lot and is doing a lot, and he's still putting out books. He just put one out recently, again, available on artistamerica.com. Paige was fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Now, the people we've had on multiple times is Brandon Starocki.
Yes. He's
been on twice now, pitching Avalon. And his latest Kickstarter was in December. It's a Christmas-themed horror story. I'm not trying to say too much about anything, but it was that. We had Lucas Scheffel on the show twice.
Yes.
Again, love having him on the show. He's one of our favorite guests. When he was on the 5th time as sort of our version of the 5-timer host of Saturday Night Live.
The 5-timers Club.
Yeah. We gave him a special T-shirt design just for him. I feel like it's the old, you wouldn't get the reference, the old Newlywed Game, a prize picked especially for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that.
Yeah, but that was the every week that whoever got it, this was a prize we picked especially for you. It was always a washer and a dryer. So we designed a shirt just for him, and he wore it on the show, so that was good. And the person that's been on the show the most this year?
It's Don
Wynn. He's been on 3 times.
He's speed running the 5-timers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He was on once to talk about, I think just to talk about Pablo the Gorilla, just have him on the show. Because we kind of had run into him at conventions. He's always been nice to us at conventions. Always act like we're, best friends when we see him. Or, always nice. We had him once to talk about Comic-Con, because he actually tables at conventions on a regular basis. So we talked a little bit about Comic-Con with him. And then again, he was on the primer.
Yes.
For the panel.
Yeah.
So anyway, did you have a favorite thing that happened in 2022 with Power Squared?
It's actually a good question. I guess the panel was the most interesting thing that happened.
Yeah, we're all introverts, so that was pretty gutsy to do it in a way.
Yeah.
So you and me and Trevor and were there. And that was kind of the anticipation for it. And so it was kind of interesting. Would you do it? Would you do that panel again there, or
maybe?
Yeah. It kind of threw off Christmas a little bit because it's the first weekend in December, which is kind of prime real estate in a way. But that was the most interesting. And then I'm hoping that this year we finally put issues 1 through 5 to bed.
Yeah. And
we don't have to rediscover those again unless we're doing something with them as far as maybe a bigger anthology or something.
Otherwise, as far as the podcast is concerned,
yes,
I liked it when I was able to talk about Silent Hill for like an hour.
Yes, we did do some special shows. That was Silent Hill was one of them.
I'm not sure I was able to share like my full thoughts on the Silent Hill series because it was like just there were so many things. I was just trying to get through it all.
Mm-hmm.
But I could probably like keep going about Silent Hill given the opportunity.
Yeah, that was I like that show was interesting. We also did a show. I'm sorry, the man died.
What?
There was an artist that died.
Oh, Takahashi.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. I
Yu-Gi-Oh?
liked doing that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
He meant a lot to me.
Yeah, you guys got to meet him actually at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And
So
had something signed by him, so that was really cool.
Yeah, it felt extra special.
Right. So, and then we also this year started a comic book club.
Yes.
I didn't mean to overlook that. I wanted to make Rachel and Julie be on the show more, and
that was a way to do it.
yeah, and that was I wanted them to get more. I wanted them to be more involved, and so the idea came up to do a comic book book club, and so we had 3 of those this year. The first one was Spy Family,
Yes.
which was Trevor's pick.
Yeah.
I believe. That was in August. In September, we did Black Sad. Spy Family was Rachel's pick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she picked
Trevor picked Black Sad.
Black Sad.
Then Julia picked
Laura Olympus.
Yeah, Laura Olympus. And then I picked the one we're gonna do next month, which is Lock and Key.
Lock and Key. So that's kind of fun. And so if you've read anything that we're going to talk about, feel free to leave comments or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, this is not a call-in show, but you can leave comments on the chat if you're interested. All right. So that kind of wraps up, except for, and I don't end the show on sad news, but Rachel Wells, our artist, who's been there since issue 6.
Yeah.
She's done 18 issues with us. She's wrapping up issue 23. She will be leaving us at the end of the year.
That's right.
And it's obviously we're not pushing her out. She wants to pursue
Children's illustration.
Yes, and we support her in that. And I think she believes it'll be a higher, better paying gig for her. And so we hope that if we can help her in any way reach that goal, we're here to help Rachel. If you need it, like a reference or something. But I have a feeling that she's probably not going to use too much from our books in her portfolio, since we don't deal with children's illustrations.
Right.
But it does show versatility or whatever.
Yes.
So anyway, we wish her luck with that, and we'll talk about the replacement in the next podcast, which will be about 2023.
Yes.
Whew, hard to say. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that about covers it.
Okay.
If you're watching this on YouTube later and you like this, leave a like. And if you want to see more, subscribe and ring that bell.
So until next week, I'm David Hankins.
And I'm Paul Hankins.
And you've been on the air with Power Squared.